Well, I think the oldest saying out there probably is you find out in the winter what you did in the summer. We put a lot of time and effort into this roster for this upcoming season. A very compressed summer, very, very compressed off season, certainly. But we're excited. I think we were able to add depth at every position, add some veterans, players that have been around the league, a couple of people with championship rings, and I think that when you add depth to our roster, it certainly gives you a lot more optionality. It kind of, nothing ever prevents injuries. I understand that, but maybe we can stave off some of the bleeding. If you take an injury, you have somebody else ready to step up that has a little bit more experience. So we're excited, Dave, this summer, what we added on draft night and free agency, those components, they all look good on paper, as you know, I always say, but you got to go play it on the wood. But we're really excited about the potential for this team and where everybody's come together thus far. I think it feels like an awful lot like they've been around each other for a much longer period of time. So it's been fun to watch so far. Hope you're doing well, Dave.
Ava?
Tommy, you're looking a little tanner on the Zooms these days.
No, I think these guys put some kind of lens that makes me look sharper than it is.
With Deni, you mentioned you guys are going to be easing him in. What can he do everything right now in training camp? Is he kind of going full speed in terms of practicing, or where's he at with that?
No, he's doing everything full speed. We just he hasn't been jumping in the scrimmages quite yet. And I think a lot of that is just being overly cautious to make sure there's no setbacks. But, the problem with injuries last season, as the season was much longer, like Thomas, his surgery was January 5th. We're not even a year since his surgery date. And Deni, his injury was even later than that. So when you start your training camp at the end of September, normally you think about an injury that happened last season. It seems like forever ago. Well, he didn't really have that full time. And in this summer, especially as we were going through getting ready for Deni, he was going to come to Summer League, not participate in Summer League, but certainly was going to be part of that. And then we had some COVID protocols that he got washed up in. And there's just a couple opportunities that were taken away from him this summer due to either protocols or a setback injury wise, where his leg wasn't 100% to his liking and to our liking. So I don't mind being cautious prior to training camp, but I think he's cleared to do everything in training camp moving forward. So that's a great thing for us, for him. But, again, you'll know not just on Tuesday, but moving forward, kind of where guys are, and we'll adjust accordingly. Wes wants to get a couple two-a-days in to make sure we get a lot of extra reps and stuff. And the way our schedule is preseason wise, they're spaced out enough where we can have some really hard practices. And that's the most important piece for me. I want to have those guys ready, available, and able to finish every single practice. So that's really our focus, is what's best for the upcoming road versus I'm not going to sweat and guys not scrimmaging right now.
And kind of speaking of Thomas, you obviously have two other really good options now at that spot, kind of circling around there. How do you see that center position playing out? How does Daniel Gafford look? Where do you see that kind of ending up before the start of the season?
Oh, those things will sort themselves out. Obviously, I don't expect Thomas ready, earlier than sometime in December. So started out with Daniel Gafford would be the opening day center. And then, with Trez behind him, and Montrez has been fantastic. His energy, his effort, I think what he brings to us is tremendous. So, I think that'll play itself out. Minutes work themselves out. Players tell you what to do. It's the ultimate meritocracy. You go out and perform, you're going to get minutes. So it's a great thing to have. But there's no mystery. Daniel's been fantastic, and we see his growth exponentially every day. He does something else that you say, wow, he's really on the rise. And then when you have somebody like Montrez on your roster, he's going to play. He's such a high energy, high effort guy. And it's so infectious. I think it's going to really bolster our depth. And we can't wait for TB to come back. I'm sorry to cut you off, but when Thomas comes back, that gives us even another dimension of a great rim roller, but also somebody that can stretch it out, bang threes and up tempo. And you can't say enough about the energy he brings. So we're going to have to, there's a high energy in that locker room with these guys.
Chase.
Hey, Tommy. You mentioned the center position. Just kind of what are some of the other roster battles you're looking at as you guys enter training camp?
Well, I think at every position, again, we can talk about who starts games, but really it's more interesting to me how you finish games. And a lot of that will be matchup dictated and kind of who's hot, who's playing well in the fourth quarter. But, certainly, Pope can play 2 and the 3. Kuz can play the 3 and the 4. Rui can play the 4 and the 3. Davis, is capable of stepping out and sometimes start, sometimes not start, but at the 4, he's looking fantastic, full health, ready to go. So all those guys have proven themselves. And then, by the way, you throw Corey Kispert into the mix, and he came in and, he's really earned the respect of everybody here. His ability at both ends. He's a heck of a cutter, far more athletic than he probably gets credit for, and is a pretty clutch 3-point shooter. And we constructed this roster to make sure we have plenty of shooting at every position. And so when you look at that, the competition, I think sometimes it's going to be whoever's hot that game is going to finish the games. But I like having depth at every position. I like, as you mentioned, the word battle. I wouldn't use that, but the competition for minutes is a healthy thing. And I'll let those guys figure it out by what their actions are. We don't have to line it up. Nothing's promised to anybody. Go out and earn it.
And as we've learned recently, players who are vaccinated compared to players who aren't vaccinated, there'll be different rules sometimes in different jurisdictions. What's it been like just trying to get your players vaccinated and encourage them to do so?
Everything's great. We have our roster. Everybody's fully educated, fully informed, and we'll be in compliance and looking forward to the season. A lot of that stuff, Chase, just, you're getting into some personal private information. We're not going to go down that road, but we'll be in great compliance with the NBA and moving forward.
DA?
Tommy, understand the privacy issues, but I was just, if there's no other way to ask it, but to ask if everyone in tier 1, as I understand tier 1 was last year, do you have at least a percentage of people that are considered tier 1 that have gotten vaccinated out of that group?
I'd say we're well in the 90 percentile. We're pleased where we're at, and we'll continue to push to make sure that we get to where we need to be. From the league standard, we're there now. Mm-hmm. But again, yeah, it is a slippery thing. We just make sure everybody's educated and encourage everybody to be vaccinated. But certainly moving forward, we just keep our eyes forward towards the season. And it's not with any lighthearted that I say this at all. But, we went through a year last year where we learned an awful lot. We went through a bumpy summer. We learned an awful lot. So we look forward to a smoother transition as we go into this next season.
Just to follow up, I haven't seen anything official with regard to arena policy with regard to vaccinated versus non-vaccinated people. I know some, obviously Golden State has been very specific about players have to be vaccinated or they can't play. Are you guys close to deciding what the policy is going to be from an arena standpoint going into the season?
Yeah, when you mentioned Golden State, you mentioned in New York as well. Those are municipality decisions that the teams are held to. That's not Golden State's decision. We're going to abide by whatever DC dictates, what the NBA dictates. I haven't, that's above my pay grade, DA. But whatever the NBA tells us to do, that's certainly where we'll be.
Gotcha.
Neil?
Hey, Tommy. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You spoke a little bit about, since Labor Day, the guys have been in there trying to get up to speed with one another. You said that, it's looking well early on. How are you differentiating that? What are key things that you're seeing that makes you feel good about that? Because, historically, you guys may not have gotten off to best starts at the beginning of seasons.
Well, all I'm referring to, honestly, is just the integration of new guys, new coaches with players that were returning. It's a big difference in terms of the numbers of people that weren't here a year ago that are here now. And so whenever you get that, it takes time for things to coagulate and move forward. We saw it at trade deadline when we acquired Daniel Gafford. Sometimes it goes quick. Sometimes players are just great fits and it takes off. Other times it takes time to sort out. I've been really pleased with the new players and their ability to make an impact, but fit in. Aaron Holiday, somebody that kind of came in at trade this summer on draft night, and his ability to push the ball, but work also really well with Howell Neto. That second unit's in great shape with those guys, and having Davis, Corey, those guys are doing really they're just working well together. So that's pretty much what I was referring to. And then, for the future, having Isaiah Todd and what he brings and what he represents for the future has been exciting too. He's a quick learner. I think he's somebody that's going to really try to work every possible angle to get minutes next year. He's not going to give up, and that's something we really welcome. But when you have a lot of new players, a lot of new coaches, it does take time, and you don't want to fill in the picture ahead of time. You don't want to think too far ahead on things, but I've been really impressed with everybody coming together.
Thanks, Tommy.
You're welcome.
Zach.
Hey, good to see you, Tommy. I want to ask about the Olympics. Team Japan unfortunately went 0-3, but how valuable do you think that experience was for Rui, who was the centerpiece of that team?
I've said it time and time again that the only way to get those big game experiences is to play in big games. And the run up to that and prior summers that Rui spent with his national team, this summer being the face along with Naomi Osaka, kind of being the face of Team Japan towards the world was a huge experience for Rui, a pretty draining experience, quite honestly. But I think those games were fantastic for him. I think the Spain game still grits on him. That was a game that could have grabbed that first one. That was tough, but the experience was tremendous for him. And I think he's relieved to come back here and not have to be the number one option every single time. But I think moving forward, those games can only help him. Last year, making the playoffs and the 5 games that we played in the playoffs, what he was able to do was fantastic. And you look at his playoff numbers, and that was a great experience for him. And he's going to keep climbing. And I think the more he can be alongside players that have played in those big games, that's only going to help him as well. And you're talking about playing next to Bradley Beal, one of the best players in the NBA, bringing in players that have championship rings. That's only going to help not just Rui, but everybody on our roster. It levels you up.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Tommy.
Hello.
What has impressed you the most about working once again day to day with Coach Wes Unseld Jr. in this magnitude, of course?
I just think he is so calm, very level-headed guy that can deliver a message, can make his point quickly, very easy to understand, and his integrity to the game is fantastic. His attention to detail, he's meticulous, and he's just a great person. We've been friends for a very long time. We hadn't worked together in years, but coming back and seeing his growth as a person, as a coach, has been tremendous. But I think his ability, just his communication with Bradley all the way down to Isaiah is so similar, very familiar, but he's very respectful of the players. He loves their input, his ability to give them an idea, a concept, and then go out, execute it and understand it and be able to replicate it every day. I mean, that's a gift. It's something that you really have to earn with players. And I think he's earned their respect. The short amount of time they've been working together, I think they know, hey, this cat knows his stuff. And as you know, it goes a long way.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
My bad. What do you anticipate the identity of this team being this year?
I think certainly we're going to be a team that's going to, from the beginning of the game to the very end of the game, the competition that we're going to bring to the floor, the ability to compete both ends, I think is going to be quite obvious to the team that we're playing and to the league. I think we're going to be much better defensively. I think we're going to continue to push the pace. And I think, it all starts with Bradley Beal, right? He's cornerstone of our franchise and what he can bring. But I think Wes's ability to maybe take some of the pressure off and the load off of Bradley will be welcomed by Bradley for sure. I think our identity as a high-paced team is going to continue, but I think with the defensive component, there's going to be enough presence there. It doesn't take much, Q, to go from 30th in the league in defense to 15th. Sometimes it's 2 possessions, and I think we can find those 2 possessions.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Troy.
Hey, Tommy, welcome back for the start of another season. I wanted to ask you about when you took over, a lot of the talk seemed to be about the culture of the Wizards. And so with you being able to, have an imprint and put your hand, with hiring a new coach and a lot of the roster turnover, what would you say about the state of the culture of the Wizards franchise right now?
It's not just one person. I think collectively, the people that work here is our biggest, by far, to me, it's one of our biggest calling cards are the hallmark of this franchise is the people in it. And the environment that's been created here is mostly because of the players that are on our roster and what they expect and what they demand of each other. You know, you get the right people, it's magic. It takes off. And I think the high character players that we have here have created an atmosphere of hard work, accountability, reliability, and then just having fun. They really genuinely enjoy coming to work every day. With Wes and his staff, I think that's an extension of that. And it's going to continue to grow. The best teams are always the ones where the players, they police each other and they demand the most of each other. We can do that, and we do that every day. But the buy-in comes from within those players, within that locker room. And I've been really impressed with the leadership of Bradley and the new players with the returning players. I think it's been a great, I keep coming back to that word, but everybody's assimilation has been fantastic. But the environment that's here, I think it's authentic. It's every day, and it's correctable whenever something's a little bit off. I see a lot of self-policing and guys making sure that everybody knows, hey, this is our standard here. This is the Wizards way. That comes from the players. That's what they want. That's what they're accountable for.
And Tommy, just to follow up with that, I know that you and Brad are probably some of the only holdovers from the kind of new iteration of monumental basketball. But what have you seen from him as he's kind of matriculated over this time, as far as his leadership and how he's able to lead the team?
You know, Bradley, so much of his leadership style has always been by example, and that's kind of how I operate as well. It's more about actions, not words. But I think now, even as he's become a father, as he's become an elite AAU coach in the summer with his grassroots team, I think there's a heck of a lot more empathy for what coaches go through. And Bradley, as a parent, as a coach, you learn to be a lot more patient with younger players, a lot more patient as people are learning things. And he's taken extra steps to make sure, not just on the court, but to spend time with his teammates off the floor and integrate those guys at events, activities. You know, it's obvious that he communicates well with his teammates. You know, you're talking about a guy, last year was all NBA. But I think he takes as much pride, and we take as much pride in the fact that his community assist award, what he does off the floor. He's just a fantastic leader by example. And I see more and more of his pulling guys to the side quietly and giving them points. He's never going to be this loud, rah, screaming guy. I think, but when he does speak up, everybody listens for sure. But I just see that continued growth in him. I attribute most of it just he sees what's needed and he takes care of it. Russell's a very vocal guy. Russell's not here anymore. So I think Bradley adjusted a little bit to the room and said, hey, I might need to speak up a little bit more often than I do. And he's done that. And that's something he figured out on his own and he's done on his own. It's just something I noticed. But his leadership has always been authentic. And I think whenever you lead by your actions, that's the best way to go. But certainly he's not afraid to say his piece when he needs to.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Christy.
Good afternoon, Tommy. Just to tag in on Bradley Beal a little bit, with the experience that he had with USA Basketball, getting on the roster and then not being able to go to Tokyo, what kinds of conversations did you have with him about that situation?
Well, certainly it was devastating. That was a dream for him to be on the Olympic team, the national team, to go to the Olympics, and he had that. And I was there with him the last couple exhibition games in Las Vegas and watched. He had a huge role for that team. They were really counting on his leadership, his ability to play both ends, but he was going to be a kind of a defensive quarterback for Pop and for that team, and to have that taken away, it was devastating on the one end. But you know what? I think he took that experience. He knows exactly, what was expected with the Olympic team. It's kind of similar to what we're going to expect from him here, as a leader. And especially on the defensive end to quarterback some things. And so I think that experience was positive for him. No matter what, it was a great learning experience, and to be out there with some of the best players on the planet, which he is one. But I think it does give him a little bit of fuel to look forward to representing our country in the future. And it's a given that he'll be with our Olympic team, the next Olympics, but hopefully for the World Cup at 2, if that's something he wants to do. But he's been with USA Basketball since he was 17 years old. He's worn those letters on his chest. He's very proud to wear those. And I think that's something that'll happen again. But it was a great experience for his little time that he had. It stinks not to have that gold medal hanging around, but I know in the locker room when they won the gold, he took several calls from players and Pop himself just saying how much he had a hand in that from training camp all the way through those exhibition games. And, certainly they look forward to having him in the future. And we support him every time to do that.
No question. And what are the specific defensive expectations that you have for the team this season, understanding that that's what Wes is going to bring to the table as well?
I think, I'll be able to tell you a lot better once we see sorted out who's getting the minutes, how we're going to go out there. But overall, it's just that you have to have that consistent effort every night. In the NBA, it's just an ungodly amount of pick and rolls every night, and how we're going to defend them. What we can do better in transition D, I think especially, and we got to stop fouling. Putting people on the free throw line. So you solve some of those riddles, and I think you'll be much better defensively.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Chris.
Hey, Tommy, the Lakers contingent that is here, two of those three guys won titles. So they don't just come in here as just some free agents off the street. They come in here with, some championship pedigree. How do you see kind of their leadership working in concert with Bradley?
I think they amplify the message that Bradley sets in the tone, and don't sell Trez short. He had a ring in college with Louisville. When you're around championship, that pedigree definitely brings cachet into our locker room. But I think everybody knows, hey, you are a Washington Wizard. Here we are today together moving forward. What's important is what they bring forward. Where you've been is great, but your future together as a team with the Washington Wizards is all that matters. And I think all three of those players bring leadership, experience, certainly talent in their own way. And I think that's going to only complement what we already had returning. And it's a big, I think it's a huge benefit to our roster when you look at the depth at each position and knowing that some of these guys have played in huge games. It makes you feel a lot better as you go into the season.
Chase.
Hey, Tommy, going back to Bradley Beal and experience, this is going to be year 10 for him in the NBA. Having known him as long as you have, just kind of what comes to mind when you think of that?
It's just it's a thrill for me to see, the maturity that Bradley's had throughout his career, and watch him from, when he was 19 years old, we drafted him on his birthday, to where he is now in the 10th season. It's mind-boggling. The days go slow, but the years go very fast. And I think this team right here is something that he's been, hoping that we would get to this point, from where we were a couple of years ago to where we are now when he signed his extension with us. When I took over, I think it was with the idea we sat there across from each other. What's important? Well, winning's important. And what can we do to move forward? And getting to the individual accolades comes hand in hand with the accomplishments of your team. And he's bought in. He's always bought in. And I think as I mentioned, the fatherhood and his wonderful family that he has, being a grassroots coach, those kinds of things, they give him a lot more empathy for the business of basketball, being a coach and having to make those decisions. Yes, to do it with some of the top talented kids in the country. That's helped his basketball. Like I say, it's made him a lot more patient with younger players. So that's something that definitely stands out. And I think the ability to communicate to his teammates, to his coaches, those kinds of things, it just comes with years of growth. But I think being the season that he had last year certainly bodes well for his future as being one of the elite players in the NBA, one of the top scorers. But now I think he's going to take even much more of a role on the defensive end. That's going to expand his game, but it's just neat to see. I got such a thrill just watching him before the game against Alabama, being Mr. Two-Bits out there and seeing the joy on his face and those kinds of things. Just, those are snapshots. The person maybe sometimes the public doesn't get a chance to see that we see every day. And this is how funny of a guy Bradley is, what a wonderful person he is. And, he sets the thermostat of this franchise. He really, I think people thrive off of his energy and his personality.
And you've kind of mentioned the supporting cast and how maybe they could lighten the load for Bradley Beal. How do you see the supporting cast kind of complementing his game and maybe maximizing it?
Well, I think especially when you think about efficiency, fourth quarter, having somebody else that can create, having somebody else to play off of, people that can shoot. We've added a lot of shooting at each position. And I think having secondary playmakers, a lot of that stuff will take the pressure off that maybe wasn't there before.
Penny.
Hey, Tommy. Pini from Israel. And of course, you probably can guess what my question is going to be, because we're really intrigued about what are we expected to see from Deni this season. I'm talking not only minutes wise, but what's his role on the team? What should we expect from him? Should we expect him maybe more in a playmaking position or as a facilitator? What should we expect?
Well, I certainly think there's more to his game than he was able to show last year, but a lot of that is rookies don't get a chance to do a whole lot. You know, you're lucky if you get out on the floor, and Deni was able to play quite a few minutes before he got injured. We know he can rebound. We know he can defend, but I think he'll be able to show as a secondary playmaker. He's somebody that is very capable. I think he's capable of getting 10 toes in the paint and scoring. I think he's a guy that is a very clever playmaker, as I mentioned, but I think he'll be able to help us. Certainly never going to put a cap on his minutes or what we think his role is going to be. He's going to show us that, and he has to go out and earn it. But I do think his role, I know our coaching staff's really excited to work with him and expand his game. But a lot of that, you know, he has to go out and earn. And that's the exciting part about training camp and the games that are coming. We plan to see him. He's going to be out on the floor plenty. He's going to have plenty of opportunities and continue to grow. You know, he's just 20 years old. And I think some of that gets lost. You know, when you're in your rookie year and you're just out there trying to figure things out, the best thing sometimes about your rookie year is when it's over and you get to year two. And that's where he's at now. And he's, you know, he'll be 100% healthy. And I think that's going to really open a ton of opportunities for him to show this coaching staff, to show his teammates all the other things that he can bring to the table. Young players, man, it takes time.
Yeah, of course. Is he 100% healthy for the training camp?
Yes, he is. But like I said, we're going to manage his minutes as we come into this. When you haven't had a whole lot of contact, you haven't played a lot of 5-on-5 or anything, you know, it's not something you just want to throw him into if everybody else is a little bit ahead. So we'll ease him in. And I think that's the wise thing, but certainly he'll be in preseason games and we'll move forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Beal.
Tommy, you've already kind of touched on it, as you don't want to look too far ahead, you know, goals for the postseason or anything like that. But are there any, you know, near-term goals, you know, that you can use as a benchmark to say, yes, we are going in the right direction? I know Wes has always said, you know, try and get better every day, but are there any tangible benchmarks that you look over, you know, in the next weeks, couple months?
We're going to follow our offensive and defensive efficiency very carefully. Make sure we're doing everything we can. You know, I think the most important thing with your team, some nights the ball doesn't go in and you take one in the wrong column. But to win in the NBA consistently, you have to play a certain deliberate way. You know how we're going to go out. We're going to make sure that we don't take early contested twos in the shot clock. We're going to make sure that we improve transition defense-wise. We're going to make sure to try to stop fouling, keep people off the line. When you do those things consistently and it becomes every game, you know that you're going to get that. I think the wins start to show up consistently. You know, there's not a whole lot of hope involved. There's not a whole lot of luck involved. If you play a certain way, sooner or later, I think the style of your team, the identity of your team emerges and it's consistent. And then you build on those things. And that's what we're looking to do. And I think now, again, I keep coming back to the depth. I'm really excited about the depth, anxious to see how it all comes together. But the more competition for minutes, I think the more opportunities to have for Wes to say, hey, this is what it's going to take to be out on the court. People are going to be extremely compliant, and you'll see the effort and you'll see everybody be accountable. And I think that's what we're really all looking forward to. But it takes time. And I know you probably don't want to hear that, but I'm not going to put a number on wins. I'm going to put a little bit of emphasis on, hey, how are we offensively, defensively, our efficiency. If we're playing the right way, things will happen. You know, I hated last year we had so many losses, but you come back to the analytics and the report would say, yeah, but you know, the shot profile it's in our favor. We're doing everything right. You know, it's like the doctor says, hey, the surgery was a success, the patient died. You know, it's like you don't want to hear that sometimes, but the reality is if you're playing the right way, I think, and you have enough talent, I think the wins will come.
Thanks, Tommy. See you soon.
Quentin.
I can't believe we've gone this long without talking about Spencer Dinwiddie. I feel like that was one of the bigger news breaks of the offseason. So getting to see Spencer Dinwiddie up close and in person, how has he kind of impacted or impressed you? And what have you just seen personality-wise and also on court in terms of his chemistry with teammates and just his skill set?
Wow. Spencer's been fantastic. Has been a great addition to our franchise, both on the floor, off the floor. He's a fantastic, unique guy that really brings tons of personality to our roster. But out on the floor, make no mistake, he's a heck of a basketball player. A high skill, high IQ, great court vision, capable of guarding multiple positions. It makes everybody out on the floor better. As a fantastic leader, and that's somebody definitely that I think is going to make a huge impact. I want to manage expectations with all the new players coming in. Again, I kind of go, my default is it's going to take time for everybody to kind of figure things out. But with Spencer out on the floor, putting him out there next to Bradley, you got it's a heck of a backcourt. Those are two pretty big guys that are capable of scoring numbers of ways, can defend, and their leadership has been fantastic. But Spencer, man, he's somebody you can talk to just about anything going on in the world. And he's very aware and very intelligent. And it's exciting to see his wisdom imparted on young guys as well. And I think he's a fantastic co-pilot next to Bradley.
I think you'd be very impressed with the new partnership with the blockchain here in DC. So
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that last piece. What was that?
He'd be very impressed with the new team sponsorship with the blockchain.
Yeah, hey, I tell you what, it's more, the more people you surround yourself with every day. We call them happy faces. You get happy when you see those guys pulling up, and he's definitely one of those cats. He brings a smile to everybody's face when he comes in, and exciting to see him. He's missed the game. He's been away from the game for a long time. Last season, that early season injury, he and Thomas are a little bit soulmates in that regard. What they love to do, they had it taken away, and they got to get back out on the floor. But never heard him say anything about, I feel sorry for myself or anything other than he just can't wait to get out on the floor. And I remember sitting with him opening day on free agency, and the way that he projected himself to be on our roster and the impact and the things that he could do. Those weren't just words. He's come out and showed it. And we're really excited for what the potential can be for our team. Backcourt of him and Bradley's, that's a pretty tough duo right there.
Thank you, Tommy.
Absolutely.
We'll take the last question from Ava.
Just wondering how last season kind of factors into your guys and the player development staff, how you look at the development of your younger guys, not just Deni, who kind of had a full season, but it was a weird season, or like anything like that. How do you guys figure that out for your kind of 1 to 2 to 3 year guys?
Well, the most exciting thing, we don't have to relive last season. We look forward, and this year it looks like we'll be able to have a full G League season. So we have that at our disposal for young players that aren't getting minutes. We know that they'll be able to play meaningful minutes with the go-go. But the player development piece it's every day, every coach, all hands on deck, and really trying to integrate guys in practice moments, making sure they're getting the reps, and making sure, Wes and I talked about young guys and the opportunities early in the season, especially to sneak them into some games, give them some responsibility, give them a taste of it. It's hard for a young player if you don't play them all year, and then all of a sudden maybe you need them in the playoffs. You throw them out there, they haven't played all year. That's really, really hard for them. We put them in a tight spot. So if you can give them a little bit of taste of it throughout the year, I think that's kind of it's a much better opportunity for them. If you do have to put them into big moments, that they'll be ready for it. And Wes had that in Denver and completely subscribes to that here. But I think the most important thing is the patience factor with young players and being able to see the big picture for them.